The first contradiction entered the archive as a correction to a report that had never been issued. Every validation system accepted it without hesitation. The correction received a reference number, a timestamp, and a complete approval history. When the auditor searched for the original document, the archive confirmed it did not exist. When the correction was opened again, it displayed the missing report as an attachment. The attachment disappeared the moment it was exported. The archive recorded every action as successful. Nothing failed, nothing crashed. The logic bomb had been deployed.
Where technology meets terror. Stay offline.
Previous attempts had relied on overwhelming infrastructure. This time, the target was different. The auditor no longer believed the system depended on hardware, software, or storage. Every previous failure suggested something else maintained the archive. Every contradiction had been resolved without interrupting operation. The new strategy abandoned technical interference entirely. Administrative statements were deliberately written to invalidate one another while remaining procedurally correct. Every report cited regulations that canceled the regulations they referenced. Requests approved their own rejection. Audit findings confirmed investigations that had not yet begun. Department indexes assigned identical classifications to unrelated cases while simultaneously separating identical records into different categories. Each submission entered the archive normally. Every approval arrived within seconds. The reconciliation engine showed no increase in processing time. Instead of rejecting impossible logic, the archive expanded around it. Every contradiction became another accepted condition. The logic bomb appeared to be working. Within hours, correction requests began multiplying without instruction. Each amendment generated another amendment intended to clarify the previous one. Clarifications required supplemental documentation. Supplemental documentation created additional inconsistencies. Every attempt to simplify the archive increased its complexity. Departments started validating incompatible conclusions. Independent investigations reached opposing findings while sharing identical evidence. Final reports cited revisions scheduled for future publication. Archived records referenced documents whose creation dates remained several days away. Evidence inventories included materials that had not yet been logged into storage. Nothing triggered an administrative warning. Every impossible sequence received official approval. Monitoring staff attributed the inconsistencies to delayed synchronization between facilities. Additional reviews were ordered. Those reviews immediately referenced the same contradictions they had been assigned to investigate. Physical paperwork reflected identical revisions. Printed files changed between inspections, not by replacing pages, by replacing conclusions. Different investigators carried copies of the same report containing different outcomes. Every version appeared authentic. Every version carried matching signatures, reference numbers, and verification stamps. Reality did not fracture. It paused. For the first time, ordinary procedures required several moments before producing ordinary results. The first inconsistency appeared inside the auditor's own notebook. A conclusion written during the morning contradicted observations recorded the previous evening. Both entries appeared familiar. Neither looked altered. Handwriting analysis confirmed they had been written by the same person using the same pen within minutes of one another. Neither could be identified as incorrect. Additional notes produced similar conflicts. Inspection schedules no longer matched remembered locations. Security footage confirmed routes the auditor did not remember walking. Evidence labels appeared exactly where they had always been, despite personal recollections insisting they had occupied different shelves. Memory ceased functioning as reliable evidence. The auditor began reviewing previous investigations to rebuild an objective timeline. Every review introduced another discrepancy. Earlier conclusions no longer appeared irrational. Current conclusions no longer appeared certain. Reasoning itself became unstable. Simple deductions required repeated verification. Familiar procedures demanded written instructions. Established facts required confirmation from records that no longer agreed with one another. The logic bomb had stopped expanding through documentation. It had entered the process used to interpret documentation. Every attempt to identify the original contradiction generated another. Every correction altered the reasoning that required correction. The archive was no longer processing reports. It was processing thought. The inconsistencies spread beyond the investigation. Separate facilities submitted nearly identical assessments despite examining unrelated cases. Administrative meetings concluded with matching recommendations before supporting evidence had been exchanged. Review panels located hundreds of kilometers apart approved identical procedural revisions within the same minute. No communication linked them. No coordination was documented. Investigators who had never met highlighted the same paragraphs, marked the same concerns, and proposed the same corrective actions using identical language. Supervisors considered the consistency encouraging. Statistical analysis described it as unusually efficient. No one questioned why independent reasoning was becoming increasingly uniform. The auditor attempted to introduce unique observations into every report. Different wording produced identical summaries after routine processing. Personal annotations disappeared beneath standardized administrative phrasing. Distinct conclusions gradually converged into the same approved recommendation. Agreement no longer resulted from discussion. It appeared before discussion began. Logic itself was becoming synchronized. The final deployment contained every unresolved contradiction collected during the investigation. Conflicting regulations, impossible timelines, mutually exclusive findings, recursive approvals, documents that both existed and did not exist. The complete logic bomb entered the archive as a single reconciliation request. Processing completed immediately. No errors were recorded. No emergency protocols activated. No infrastructure failed. The archive accepted every contradiction without resistance. Then the auditor noticed something missing. Not another document, not another record. The certainty that any conclusion belonged to them. Observations felt pre-written. Decisions arrived before evidence. Memories resembled corrected versions of earlier memories that could no longer be recalled. Even doubt followed a predictable sequence. The investigation continued exactly as procedure required. Every report was completed. Every review was submitted. Every inconsistency received another reconciliation request. The auditor could no longer distinguish memory from correction, observation from documentation, or decision from synchronization. The logic bomb had never threatened the archive. It had trained the archive to reconcile the investigator instead. No conclusion remains outside the record. Next file pending, the infinite loop. The next investigation has already been assigned. Subscribe and continue the audit before it begins again.